We begin today the Gemara, 4 lines in the bottom from Mem Aleph and Beis, where it says Ha Niche. The Gemara before brought the source for Shlichus by Kotchem, by Karbanis, from the pasuk that it says by Karban Pesach, V'shachatu Haisei Kol Kahal Adas Yisrael Ben Arbaim, that all Yidden shech the carbon. So the Rosh Rabbi Shua ben Karcha says, do all Yidden shech the carbon? There's only one person that shechs the carbon, so that means Shlucha Shaladam Kamaisei. Whoever shechting it for everyone is doing it as a shlichus. Okay, so now here the Gemara continues on this and says that there's actually another mandamar that learns from that pasuk something else. So we have to figure out what's going to be the source of shlichus over there by Kotchem. The drasha we said before is according to Rabbi Shua ben Karcha. However, according to Rabbi Yonasan, the Mapik he uses this drasha for something else. So minala, from where do we know the din of shlichus regarding Kotchem? The Tanya we learned in Abraisa that Rabbi Yonasan says, "Minayin shekol Yisrael kulon yaitzin bepesach echad." How do we know that the entire Klal Yisrael could be yaitze with one carbon Pesach? So Rashi explains the main chiddush of Rabbi Yonasan is that you don't have to eat from the carbon Pesach a kazayis. The main mitzvah of the carbon Pesach is the shechting, or the spraying of the blood in the mizbeach. So all Klal Yisrael could be yaitze with one carbon, even though they don't get a kazayis. Shenema v'shachatu oisay kol kahal adas Yisrael ben arbaim. All Yidden shech the carbon. V'chikol hakol kulam shechtim v'aleinu shechet elechad. Only one person shechts. Ela mikan, what this pasuk is coming to teach is shekol Yisrael yaitzim bepesach echad. All the Klal Yisrael can be yaitze with one Pesach. That's what this pasuk is coming to say. So we can't learn from here the chiddush, the din of shlichus. So what's the source of shlichus according to Rabbi Yonasan? So the Gemara answers right away. Well, even though Rabbi Yonasan learns from here the chiddush that all the Klal Yisrael can be yaitze with one Pesach, but nevertheless we can learn from here this din as well. Minei. We learn it, or did I skip a few words? The Gemara asks first the question. Shliach bekotchem minale. So from where do we know the din of shlichus by kotchem? So the Gemara answers, Minei, from this pasuk itself. Even though we're learning from here this din that all of Klal Yisrael can be yaitzu with one carbon Pesach, but the fact is that even according to Rabbi Yonasan, one person is shechting for everybody. And one person is spraying the blood for everybody. So from this itself, it's also a proof to the concept of shlichus. Says the Gemara, no, but this can't be a good source for all of Kotchem, because Vidilme Shani Hasam, according to Rabbi Yonasan, you can argue and say that the carbon Pesach is different because the Islay Shutfis Begavayu. Maybe the reason why Shlichus works over here is because everybody are partners here in this carbon. But who says that Shlichus, when you're not a partner in the carbon, would work? If you have the carbon tzibur that's bringing board for the whole Klal Yisrael, b'chlal, the concept of shlichus by kotchem, even if you're not a partner in the carbon, from where do you know this? So this is a question according to Rabbi Yonasan that says that over here all the Klal Yisrael can be partners in this one carbon. And says the Gemara, Ela mihacha. So we have to say there's another pasuk where we see the concept of shlichus by kotchem. Pasuk says, Yikchol lahem ish sela beis avos sela bayis. By the carbon Pesach as well, that everyone takes a lamb, a seh for the house. So what we learn from here is that one person acquires and designates a carbon for the entire family. He does it for the whole family. So here in this pasuk we see one ish is doing it for everyone. So we see the din of shlichus here by the carbon Pesach. But again, the Gemara asks, what's the raya from the carbon Pesach? That is the din of shlichus b'chlal, by other carbonas, by kotchem. We just said, according to Rabbi Yonasan, it's possible that everybody is shutfim over here in this carbon. Over here, the sela bayis, even without Rabbi Yonasan over here, it's one person taking for the people in his house, and everybody is shutfim in this. So maybe the shlichus is also because they're partners. But how do you know shlichus b'chlal by everything else? So the Gemara says, but wait a minute. If in both of these psukim that we just brought by the carbon Pesach, in both cases we see the concept of shlichus, and in both cases there's everyone that is shutfim here in this carbon. So trei kroi lameli. Why do we have here two psukim that are teaching me the same concept of shlichus when you're a shliach for someone that's a partner? So therefore, what we say is as follows: if the chiddush of shlichus does not apply, is not needed to teach where the pasuk is actually speaking about, so then we learn from here that this second pasuk must be speaking about in a case of shlichus where people are not shluchim. Yeah, shutfim, that is, they're not partners. So from here we could learn the din of shlichus regarding all kachim, even when you're not shutfim. Otherwise, there's a redundancy. The two limudim are the same. Frag the Gemara, but it's not a redundancy. There's actually another din that's learned from this second pasuk. Hi mi boyele, don't we need the second pasuk here? Like Rabbi Yitzchak to teach me what Rabbi Yitzchak said. Rabbi Yitzchak said, Ish zeiche. Only a man could be zeiche in a korban pesach for everyone else in the house. The cotton cannot be zeiche in the korban pesach for everyone else. So therefore, we could still say that the concept of shlichus is only if there's a partnership, and the second pasuk we have over here is talking about it, is telling me a different din, that a cotton can't acquire the korban pesach for everyone. But we don't have an extra pasuk to teach me the din of shlichus when they're not partners. Says the Gemara, this halacha that the cotton can't acquire the korban pesach for everyone in the house, we learn it from another pasuk. Me'ish Lifi achloi nafke. That it says the ish lifi achloi. So the word ish here says that only a ish, a man, a gadol, could be zeicha for everyone else, but not a cotton. So we see over here this halacha. So we still have the extra pasuk before to teach me the din of shlichus, even when they're not shutfin. But vakatami boyelei. Don't we need the pasuk over here of ish to teach me the sheichten as a pesach ala yachid, to teach me that this pasuk of Ish Lefi Achle that we just brought now, isn't that pasuk coming to teach me yet another din? That you can shecht a korban pesach even for just one yid. He doesn't have to have any partners, anybody else along with him in this korban. That's why it says Ish Lachshin Yachid. So we have this halacha that you shecht a korban pesach on a yachid that you learn from Ish Lefi Achle. Then from V'yichlem Ish you learn to exclude a katan. And then when it says v'shachatu oisa, you learn the din of shlichus, but only when they're shutfin, only when they're partners. So we don't have any extra pasuk here to teach the din of shlichus when they're not partners. So the Gemara answers this last din. So we're going to have to say Rabbi Yonason that we're trying to figure out what's his source of shlichus by kachim. Savala Kamanda Amar, he holds like the opinion that says, Rashi brings, this is Rabbi Yehuda, that learns out Masechta Psachim, that ein sheichten es ha-pesach ala yachid. You don't shecht the korban pesach for one individual. He learns it out from the pasuk that says lesucha lizboyach ha-pesach be'echad. It's actually read ba'achat sharecha, but he darshans that b'yachid, that you don't shecht the korban pesach for one person. So therefore, we do have an extra pasuk here to teach me that there's a din of shlichus, even in a case where they're not partners in the korban. Okay, so this is the conclusion of the sources that we have for shlichus. So here we have the source of shlichus by kachim according to Rabbi Yonason. We had before in the Gemara the source according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. We also had the source for shlichus by Kidushin, by Gerishim, by Truma, as the Gemara explained before in Daf Mem Aleph. Now the Gemara brings that we have seemingly yet another source for shlichus. Rav Gidl said in the name of Rav, Minayin sheshluchas lodem kamoise. What's the source that a shliach that does something for you in your place, he's like you did it? Shenam, the pasuk says, and this is by the Yerusha, Yidden inherited Eretz Yisrael. So it says, "V'nasi echad mimata." You have a nasi, the leader of every shevet, that they divide and are zeiche in the territory for the people of their shevet. So here, from this pasuk, Rav says, you learn out that the nasi of the shevet is a shliach for the people of the shevet to be zeiche in their territory for them. So typically shlichus mehacha. Why don't we learn out shlichus from this pasuk here regarding the inheritance of Eretz Yisrael? So the Gemara says, "V'tizbera, is this a good svara? Can we actually use this as a source for shlichus? The ha shlichusu, is this halacha that the pasuk here is saying that the nasi was zeicha for people in the shevet? Is this based on the concept of shlichus? V'ha ketanim lav b'nei shlichus nino. A katan cannot appoint a shliach for himself. So over here, part of the people that was zeiche in the territory from the Shvatim in Eretz Yisrael, there were Gedalim, but there were also Ketanim that was zeiche in Eretz Yisrael. So Rashi brings in the source that says regarding shlichus, it says the term ish, ki yikach ish. So there's no shlichus for a cotton. So if there's no shlichus for a cotton, this pasuk that says that the nasi is zeiche for the people of the shevet, including a cotton, it can't be talking about shlichus. So this is not a source for shlichus. Says the Gemara, ki ha de Rave Barav Hune, the Oma Rave Barav Hune, Omer Rav Gidl Omer Rav, that from here we actually learn a different halacha. Minayin shezachin adam shaloi befonav. How do I know, even if you weren't appointed to be a shliach, but you're doing something which is beneficial for someone, So we learn from here that what you're zeicha for that individual, it takes effect even if you didn't appoint you for this. Remember, we learned this is a concept of schia. You could be zeicha. We learned in Gittin many different scenarios when you do something for someone and it's a schus for him. So here the Gemara says this is the source right over here. The nasi was zeicha for everyone in the shevet, including the katan. Now the katan can't appoint the shliach. So what the nasi is doing for the katan is like he was never asked to do this by the katan, but it takes effect because it's beneficial for the katan. Is this a good svara? Could we learn the concept of zechia when you do something which is beneficial from here? Zechusi, is this going to be something which is beneficial for who they was zeicha for the territory? This could also be something which is actually something that the person that you're being zeicha for does not like. Why? Because one person wants to have a territory in a mountain. He does not want to have a valley. Another person wants dafka in a valley. He doesn't want to have a place in the mountain. So this is not called schia. Being zeicha in a territory for the people in the shevet, you can't say that this is something that you know for sure it's beneficial for everyone, and therefore this is the source of zechia. Says the Gemara ve'elo kedrava barav Huna. Another thing Rav barav Huna said, Omer Rav barav Huna, Omer Rav Gidl Omer Rav. Minayin li yisaimim. From where do I know that when you have yisaimim, shabol lachleik benichsi avien, these are yisaimim which are ketanim, and they want to divide the properties that they inherited from their father, and they can't do it themselves. So shebezdin mamidim lam apetrupis. Bezdin appoints for them a caretaker, an apetrupis, and that is lachuv v'lischos. And this caretaker divides the property, and the simple taich of what Rav said over here is, he does it in a way, even if it's going to be something that's negative for one and positive for the other, the apetrupis has the koyach to divide this. But the Gemara explains what this means. Lachav amai. Why would an apetrupis have the power to give or to divide in a way that it favors one and it's bad for another? Says the Gemara, Elo, what he meant to say is, Lachov almanas liskais. If he's trying to give everyone the right thing that's best for him, but then later someone comes and says, no, what you try to do best for me is really something that's negative for me because I want a different portion and a different part and a different side that's more convenient for me. So even something that you do that's a benefit could end up being something which is negative. This is a special din of an apetrupis that we learn out from here. The nasibi is the caretaker of all people in the shevet, including the ketanim, and the same apetrupis has a power of bezdin to divide the properties for yisaimim ketanim from the father, as long as they're doing it with the intention that it should be a benefit, even if it comes out later that someone loses out something from this, they have a koyach to be zeicha for everyone. In connection to this, regarding the Yisaimim, the Gemara brings Amar of Nachman Amar Shmuel, Yisaimim shabo lachlek benichsei aviyem, Yisaimim that are coming to divide the properties of their father. Bezdin mamidin lem apetrupis, Bezdin appoints this apetrupis, the caretaker, ubayrin lehem chelik yofe, and the apetrupis chooses for each one of the Yisaimim a portion that's good for him. But then, ve'imik dilu, later, when these Yisaimim become Gedalim, and now they want to come and argue and claim that the portion that they were given is not good for them, they could come and fight or protest against us and say, this is not a portion that's good for me. This is what Rav Nachman said in the name of Shmuel. Now Rav Nachman himself said, no, even when they become a Gadol, they can't protest against what the apetrupis got for them when they were a cotton. Because if you'll say they can, then so then what power does the bezin have? The apetrupis does something, and then later they become gedolim, and they just undo everything. So we want to have that the apetrupis should have the power of a bezin and should be confirmed and done with, and you can't go back on that. So here we see that Rav Nachman says that the apetrupis has a power of bezdin, and we can't change. Fragt the Gemara, but in Miyasle Rav Nachman, does Rav Nachman hold that you have this power of bezdin that we can't undo? As he expresses it in his words, if you're going to say you could undo what a bezdin does, so then what power does bezdin have? There's another place where Rav Nachman says the opposite, because what we learned in the Mishnah. Shuma dayanim that are coming and evaluating a property. So Rashi explains they're evaluating the property of a borrower that owes money and didn't pay up, and then Bezdin is basically coming and forcing to collect the money from his property, and they're coming to evaluate that property. So you had these evaluators of the Bezdin. Shepichasu shtos, they made a mistake in their evaluation. Whether they made a mistake and they evaluated it less by a sixth, or hisiru shtos, they evaluated it more by a sixth, so they're mechram batal. So because they evaluated it in this amount, not like it should be, so the sale is batal. Right? The sixth, if it's less than a sixth, then it doesn't count. But if it's a sixth, then it's a mekach tost, and the mekach is batal, even though this is a bezdin, a shliach of bezdin that's evaluating it. This doesn't matter. But Rab Shimon Gamliel says, mechran kayam. Even though you made a mistake in the evaluation, the sale is still in effect. Rab Shimon Gamliel explained his opinion because if you're going to say that Bezdin evaluates and sells and collects for the malva, and then it turns out that there was a mistake and you have to return the whole thing, so then what's the power of Bezdin? This is the power of Bezdin has to come and collect the property even if they make a mistake. Now on this machlekes, said in the name of Rav Nachman that said halacha kedivrei chachamim, that we paskin like chachamim that's not concerned about the power of Bezdin. So before Rav Nachman regarding the apotropis was concerned about the fact that there's a power of Bezdin here and we don't go back on that, and here he says that no, we paskin like the chachamim. And says the Gemara, there's a big difference. Like Kasha, there's no question because the tohu. Over here, we're talking about that the shliach of the Bezdin made a mistake in his evaluation. So in such a case, Rav Nachman's paskin like the Chachamim, that it's the right thing, that you should be able to go back on this evaluation. By the apotropis, he didn't make any mistake. He gave every yasam got a fair share in the property. So in such a case, when the yasam becomes a gadol, he can't come and protest and decide that he wants to change the division of the properties. So the Gemara asks, if there was no mistake made here, so then what are the Yisayim if they become Gedolim? What are they protesting about? It's a perfect division. And so the Gemara, the other opinion that says that he could protest, what are they protesting about? Regarding the side, the area of where he got it. Let's say one Yassim gets older, says that you gave me a portion on the Durham side, on the south side, and I have another property that I inherited from my grandfather on the north side. So now this is very inconvenient for me to go from the north to the south. So he wants to be meicha and now switch the properties to have in a place that's convenient for him. So it was fair, but now that he has another property there, he wants it to be convenient. So the other Tana held that you are able to be meicha for this. Okay, in connection to this, the Gemara is soon going to come back to the halacha of shlichus, but the Gemara here brings another thing connected to this regarding the properties, the evaluation of the properties. When brothers divide the inheritance, the halacha regarding what they evaluated, when they split, they have the same halachas like buying, selling a property. And the halacha is pachis mishtos nikna mekach. If there was a mistake that was less of a sixth, then the sale takes effect. And here's the division takes effect. Yes, it al shtos batl mekach. But if the mistake was more than a sixth, so that's already a very big mistake in the evaluation. So then a batl mekach, then the whole mekach, the whole sale, or the division is batl. Shtos, if the mistake was exactly a sixth, then kona, the division or the sale takes effect. Umachzerei, but the difference, you have to return the difference that was lost out of here. That's the halacha Rav Nachman said. Now on this, Rava came and clarified as follows. Omar Rava, so Rava says, Ha da Amrit. This that Rav Nachman said, Pachlis mishtus, that if the mistake was less than a sixth, Nikne mekach, that the sale, the division takes effect, Loya Maran, this was only said, Ela de leishavya shliach, that he didn't appoint a shliach to make this division. Then I say less than a sixth is too minimal of a mistake to be mevatel the whole thing. Avashavya shliach, but if there was a shliach here appointed to make this division, then any mistake, even the tiniest mistake, Omar or Omar Le, you can tell, or Matzi Amale, you can tell the shliach, l'tkunish darticha, I sent you to fix, to do what's right for me, v'loy la'afsi, and not to do something which will be a mistake for me. So the tiniest mistake, the shlichus, is not fulfilled, so he can go back on the division. Another thing Rava said, this that you, Rav Nachman, said, yes, a mishtus batal mekach, if the mistake was more than a sixth and the sale is nullified. That's only if he did not say that we're going to do the evaluation with a bezdin. They just did it between themselves. If they're doing the evaluation with bezdin, then mechran kayim. Then even if there was a mistake, it doesn't matter. the division will still be in effect, because Rava here is actually paskening like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, not like Rav Nachman before, that says, Makoich Bezdin Yafa, once it's according to Bezdin, we don't go back even if there was a mistake. And here the Gemara brings again the same Mishnah quoted before. The Tnan, as we learned, Tanakama says, even when a Bezdin evaluates and there's a mistake, even the sixth, it's bottle. Shimon Gamliel says that the sale remains in effect if it's an evaluation from Bezdin, and that's who we're paskening like. Now the third point Rava says now, the Amrit, this that you said, shtus, if the mistake here in this division was a sixth, that kana, it takes effect, but no, you have to give back the difference here. This was actually, this halacha you're saying is only regarding metaltalin, regarding movable items. If the division here is regarding properties, by karkais, an evaluation, even if there's a mistake, doesn't matter. There's no din of a no regarding karkais. Okay, because when it comes to karka, there's different reasons for this. So, Pashtus, the reason is because when it comes to karka, Rashi brings actually a pasuk as a source, that the whole concept of oina that it says in the pasuk is oikonoi miyad amisecha, which refers to movable items. But when it comes to properties, property value goes up and down so drastically that it's not like a movable item, it's some object which has sort of a set price. Properties go up and down, so over there's no oina for karkois. The last point he said is ubimekarkoi lo yamaron. This that I'm saying here, that regarding properties, so the oina is not mevatel the sale. That's ella the plug be'iluya. If the way they divided these properties is by its value, the value of it, so then that's something where there's no oina, it goes up and down, so therefore it doesn't nullify the sale. Aval plug b'meshchese. If they're dividing the property simply by measuring space, the size of the actual property itself, then this exception regarding karka that there's no oina does not apply. Because then you just didn't measure right. It has to be exactly to the inch, perfectly. As Rabbi said, anything that you're selling by measuring or by weight or by size or by number, even if the mistake is less than the usual amount of which is a sixth, the whole sale, you go back on the sale, because if you're measuring a specific amount, then you have to measure it exact. Okay, this is the conclusion of this side thing that came up here regarding the apotropis of a bezdin, and then also regarding the evaluation of a bezdin and a karka and different things related to that. Now the Gemara comes back to the halacha of shlichus. This that it says in a Mishnah Masechta Baba Kama. A person sends a coal with fire, biyad cheresh sheitav v'katan, in the hands of a cheresh sheitav v'katan that have no mind of their own to take care and be responsible for this, and then they cause the damage with this fire in their hands. Pater midina yadam. The mishalech that sent, he's pater midina yadam because he didn't do any damage himself, but v'chai b'dini shemayim. In the eyes of Hashem, for Hashem, he is liable for what happened there because he gave this to a cheresh sheitav v'katan that ended up causing this damage. However, if a person sends a fire in the hands of a sane individual that could be responsible himself, you sent him to deliver it somewhere and he did a damage, then this individual himself that's sane, that has his own responsibility, he's responsible and not the sender that gave him this fire. Why do we say this? Why shouldn't we say over here that the concept of shlichus should apply, that what the person you sent did relates back to you as if you did it, and the mishaleach should be chayiv and not the shliach. Answers the Gemara, here we don't say shlichus shlodim k'maisai. Shani hasam, this is different because the rule is the ein shliach lidvar aveda. There's no concept of shlichus that you could relate back to the sender when it comes to an aveda to say that the mishaleach will be chayiv. The person that did it, he has the responsibility of his own. Because we say to him, Divrei Harav, this is an analogy, if we have the words of the teacher, or Divrei Talmud, and you have the Talmud, you have the words of a student, Divrei Mishayim, and who do you listen to? I gave you this fire, so now you're listening to me and carrying this fire in a dangerous way. You have to listen to the Eibusha that says that you have to be careful with an Aveda that you do. To be responsible, you're responsible for yourself. So what this individual does, the Shliach, it doesn't relate back to the Mishalech in such a case if it's an Aveda. The Gemara now, based on this new rule we have here, so V'had Tanya or V'had Nan, this that we learned in the Mishnah, regarding the halacha of Me'ila. when you're using an item of hegdish or money of hegdish, and you're sending a shliach that's being moil, that's using this money here. So what happens in the case of that you have this hegdish and the person made a mistake? He didn't realize, the mishalech, that is, he thought that what he has here is chulin. So therefore he gave it to a shliach to go and buy him a shirt. And the shliach went and took it, and here the Mishnah speaks about what did the shliach do with this money. So shliach shaloi also shlichusai. If you gave the shliach this money that you didn't realize it's from hektish or it's a shaygig, and now this shliach did not buy what you asked him to buy, he didn't buy a shirt. Instead of buying a shirt, he bought something else, a talis, Rashi says. So then shliach mo, because the shliach didn't fulfill the shlichus you gave him, so then he was moil here in this money from hektish. The din of meila with a carbon, with a chaimish applies when it happened b'shaygig, right? So the mishalech didn't know it was money from hektish, the shliach didn't, but he didn't fulfill the shlichus. So he's responsible himself for what he bought. But also shlichusai, if he did listen and he did exactly, he bought what the mishalech sent him to buy, then balabais mal, the balabais that gave him this money, he's moil for the money spent here, that's from hektish. So the Gemara asks, so we see here, if the shliach fulfills the shlichus that the balabais gave him, so then the balabais is the one that's moil and he has to bring the carbon and pay back the chaimish and so on. But amai, why? Name it, why shouldn't we apply here the same rule? Ein shliach lidvar aveda. That when it comes to an aveda, there's no concept of shlichus. And says the Gemara, Mila is an exception. Shani Mila is different. The Alpha, by the din of Meila, we learn out the din of Shlichus, Chet mitruma. We compare the term Chet that it says by Meila to the term Chet that it says by Truma, and for many things they're compared to each other, and therefore the din of Shlichus does apply. Ma Truma Mashvi Shliach, just by Truma we learned out before in Daf Mem Aleph that you could appoint a Shliach, Af Meila, Mashvi Shliach. By Meila as well, there's a din of Shlichus. So the Gemara asks, if we have a clear source for the din of Shlichus even by a Dvar Aveda, so V'neile F'mina, let's learn out from here that in all of Torah there is a din of shlichus for a dvar aveda. Why not make this a source for everywhere else? Answers the Gemara, because there's another place which is an exception. Mishum da'ava meila or shlichus yad, because you have the din of meila that we just mentioned, and then you have the din of shlichus yad. This is a person that's holding up a kodin, an item that he's keeping, safeguarding for someone, and he goes and he tampers with it, he touches it, and so on. So over there, by this din of shlichus yad, there's also a din of shlichus, even though it's an aveda. But there, as we'll see soon, there's a din of shlichus, so therefore it's shnei ksuvim abon kechad. The Torah is letting you know that even though it's a dvar aveda, but nevertheless, you have over here two psukim, two places where the Torah says this exception that there's a din of shlichus for a dvar aveda. So once the Torah repeats the same thing in two places, the rule is v'chol shnei ksuvim abon keechad. When the Torah repeats the same thing in two places, ein melamden. That means that you can't learn anywhere else, because the Torah intended you should learn to other places. It doesn't have to say it in two places. You could say it in one place. So the Gemara explains now. Me'ila, we see that by Me'ila there's a din of shlichus, even though it's an aveda hodamaran. As we mentioned before, we learn out from Truma. Shlichus yad ma'ihi. What's the source? By shlichus yad of a pekadon. When you tamper with someone's pekadon that's in your possession, and you did that through a shliach, you sent someone else to touch it or move it. So how do we know that there the mishalech is responsible for this? There is a din of shlichus, because the Tanya we learned in the Braisa regarding a pekadon. The Torah says al kol dvar pesha. So this is an extra pasuk here. After what he says before in the pasuk in lo yishalach yodev b'meleches re'eyu, that you didn't touch anything that your friend gave you. That it says again al kol dvar pesha. What is this additional point here? So Beishamai yoimrim, Beishamai say l'chayev ala machshava kemaisa. The chiddush this pasuk is saying is that even if you didn't actually touch this thing that's in your possession, this pekadon here, even if you just had a thought or spoke about moving it from one place to another, from that point on, you're kainet, it becomes yours now. And even if, Rashi says what happens is, even if this was a kind of pekadon, let's say you were a shem mechinam. Shem mechinam is only responsible for a pshia, for being negligent with it. But the moment you were sheleach yad, you moved it, or even in according to Beishamai, you thought to move it, and now it becomes like yours, meaning you'll be responsible for any oinus that happens with it, and you have to pay back for that. It's like by a gneva, like you stole it already, and now you're responsible for everything. That's what we learn out from the extra pasuk of Akol Dvar Pesha. But Beisilo and Beisilo say, no, you only chayiv until you actually touch it, do something with it, not just a thought or talking about it. Shaneva, as the pasuk says there before, if you didn't send your hand, if you didn't actually touch it. So Amr Beis Shammai le Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai argue with Hillel, and they told Beis Hillel Mahalinema, but we have an additional pasuk. It says Al Kol Dvar Pesha. It's coming to add something more. Amr Lahem Beis Hillel le Beis Shammai. So Beis Hillel argues to Beis Shammai, but Mahalinema Im Lo Yishalach Yodoi Mimalaches Reyeyu. It says only if you did something by hand, not just thought to do something. So Amr Beis Shammai le Beis Hillel. So Beis Shammai asks Beis Hillel, but Imkain Al Kol Dvar Pesha Lamali. What would you learn out from this extra pasuk when it says Al Kol Dvar Pesha? So he answers, Shiyachayil en li'elahu. I would think that the din of shlichus yad, that you become now responsible for it completely, even for an aynes, that's only if you went and touched it yourself. Amar la'avdei. If you said to your slave, your servant, or l'shluchai, you appointed a shliach to go and tamper with it. Minayin, how do I know that the din of shlichus yad applies, that now you become fully responsible for any aynes that happens to this pekadein? That's why we learn that from Akol Dvar Pesha. So here, according to Beis Hillel, we see from Akol Dvar Pesha that it's being marbe a din of shlichus by this pekadin when you go and you send someone to tamper with it. So this is the second place where we see a din of shlichus for a dvar aveda. So therefore, shliach by a dvar aveda is shnei chsuv mabam keechad meila and shlichus yad, and therefore we can't learn from here to any other place. The Gemara will continue to explain what we say according to Beis Shammai. Since Beis Shammai holds by shlichus yad, there is no din of shlichus. We'll see in the continuation of the Gemara, Mr. Shem.